George, you were there. You were there raising the money for him. Maybe before, at the dinner before, or whatever. You might have been like, I'm a little concerned about this, Barack. Maybe we should call this thing off tonight or something else. You raise the money. He's got the money now. They have the money. The only way that money doesn't end up in someone else's hand is if Biden steps down and gives it to Kamala, right? Like that's the one way it stays, at least in that circle. But again, George, how is it that me, having never met Joe Biden, just watching videos, knew the thing that you're on yachts with him and boats and private planes, I'm sure, and probably Air Force One and all that stuff, and you're just coming around? And this would get us to what we were talking about in the previous segment, which is that this has something to do with Barack Obama.
So the New York Times just published an op-ed from George Clooney, and it was titled, George Clooney, I love Joe Biden, but we need a new nominee. So I want to read you, Dave, some of the highlights, some of the excerpts of this, okay? I love Joe Biden. As a senator, as a vice president, and as a president, I consider him a friend, and I believe in him. In the last 4 years, he's won many of the battles he's faced, but the one battle he cannot win is the fight against time. None of us can. It's devastating to say it, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. Joe Biden is a hero. He saved democracy in 2020. We need him to do it again in 2024. I just have to question George Clooney's take on anything. If he's saying he's not, I agree with him. He's not the same man that he was in 2020, but he was still gone. So now all of a sudden?
How many shots of Casamigos did he have before he wrote that thing? A company which he sold, by the way. People think he still owns it for $750 million. He did okay on that tequila. But that's neither here nor there. First off, Joe Biden did not save democracy. Secondly, he has not done anything positive if you really care about America in the 3.5 years of this sham, absurd administration. But the bumper sticker on this really is that George, you were there. You were there raising the money for him. Maybe before, at the dinner before, or whatever. You might have been like, I'm a little concerned about this, Barack. Maybe we should call this thing off tonight or something else. You raise the money. He's got the money now. They have the money. The only way that money doesn't end up in someone else's hand is if Biden steps down and gives it to Kamala, right? Like that's the one way it stays, at least in that circle. But again, George, how is it that me, having never met Joe Biden, just watching videos, knew the thing that you're on yachts with him and boats and private planes, I'm sure, and probably Air Force One and all that stuff, and you're just coming around? And this would get us to what we were talking about in the previous segment, which is that this has something to do with Barack Obama, who at the end of that event, the way he carried him off stage, basically held him. Remember when he grabs his arm, but it's not, but he grabs his wrist like this, which was leading, not his hand. And then the way he put his arm around him was so condescending. And that was Obama, to me, signaling to everybody, don't worry, this is really me in charge. So I think what's happening right now is Obama and Clooney and these types of people, they're realizing, Biden is not going to win. So we better replace him quick so that we have a chance for Barack to have his fourth term.
Well, it has been a really interesting timeline because May 20th, George Clooney called a top White House official to basically essentially complain about Joe Biden condemning the ICC, the International Criminal Court, and calling its arrest warrants outrageous because Joe Biden was dissing his wife.
Yeah.
Okay. So George Clooney's wife, Amal, was providing legal analysis for the ICC's investigation. So who knows what sort of, pressure she might be putting on him.
Yep.
Then, of course, as you mentioned, George Clooney and Joe Biden did this big giant fundraiser, raised like $28 million for the Biden campaign. And then shortly afterwards, we hear George Clooney's all of a sudden like, you know what? Changed my mind. Would you be pissed, by the way, if you were one of those donors that George Clooney just convinced to donate all this money, and then he's like, actually, it turns out I don't actually believe in this guy at all?
Yes, you should be. First off, you should be you should have your head examined if you've donated to Joe Biden in the first place, putting aside George Clooney for a second. But yes, if you donated millions for that night, you should be pissed at George Clooney for doing that. And also, do you have any knowledge? You're an insider. Do you have any knowledge? What does Tootie think about all of this? Tootie from Facts of Life, because George Clooney was in Facts of Life. You remember that? He was in the 80s sitcom Facts of Life. Nobody remembers that. But what does Tootie think? What does Blair think?
That's what I want to know.
What does Mrs. Garrett think?
That's what I want to know.
Horace Leachman.
the questions people need to be answering.
Fat girl, I can't remember her name.
Quite honestly, we'll just leave it at fat girl. That's fine.
What was her name? Remember, she
was fat.
She was fat. The whole thing was that she was fat. Porker? No.
I hope it was Porker.
No, I don't think it was Porker.
So in his New York Times op-ed, he did also say, I thought this was interesting, that he said, we're not going to win the House. We're not going to win the Senate. This isn't only my opinion. This is the opinion of every senator and Congress member and governor that I've spoken with in private, every single one. And he says, irrespective of what he or she is saying publicly. Sounds to me, Dave, like he's calling out Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi. I mean, these are all big-time Democrat, lawmakers,
right,
who are very publicly being like, "Oh, AOC."
Well, because they don't know what to do, right? Because as I said earlier, it's unfurling so quickly in real time that nobody knows what the answer is. Unless you're going to 25th Amendment him, which they're not going to do. It's just extremely complex.
No,
they probably can't get the votes and everything else. Unless you're going to do that, then there's no mechanism to get rid of him short of him having a stroke or something like that, right? So that's part of it. That's one problem. The other problem is that nobody likes Kamala nor thinks she should be president of the United States. That's partly why Obama selected her, because they knew he was compromised. So it's like, bring in someone who no one thinks is worthy of being your replacement. So it's so great, actually, in some way, because this is what the Democrats deserve. Now, I don't want them to take the country down with them. And that, by the way, that is possible, because if you're Xi in China right now, why wouldn't you take Taiwan this week? And just to put more pressure on us, or whatever the Ayatollah could tell Hezbollah to do with Israel, or whatever's going on in Ukraine, like Putin could just be like, let me just set more blaze to everything, But I'm an American first, and I don't want those bad things to happen, obviously.
Sure.
But the Democrat Party deserves all of this. They created an unholy alliance of leftists and anarchists and jihadists and crazy people. They threw in a dash of a guy with dementia and a crackhead son and a megalomaniac wife. And congratulations, you have the most disgusting soup ever. The question is, are we going to have it spilled over on all of us?
Well, right. So what happens? So because I don't disagree with you that it is Barack Obama that's calling the shots now and pushing for Joe Biden to be removed, even though I will add, he did tweet. I think you mentioned this earlier. He did tweet after the debate, like, "Oh, it was just one night."
I think that was, but that's not, because that was him basically like, I need time.
Yeah.
He needed time to figure out what to do. So now we're 2 weeks later, and we have George Clooney, who's obviously an Obama guy, basically showing him the door. So it's sort of like Gavin Newsom showing up to the debate. So even before the debate, right? Gavin Newsom shows up, and I love Joe Biden, and nobody's better than Joe Biden, and Joe Biden. But that's not what he's really doing. Is he's taking Joe Biden like this, and he's putting a screwdriver into his back while he's doing it, and he's smiling with his horrible veneers and everything else. That's what's happening.
And then he expects us to not realize what's going on. We're like, Gavin, come on.
Sarah, I don't like having hatred in my heart, but I hate that man. Like,
it's personal for you.
Yeah. I'm pretty much, if that man becomes president, I think I have to leave the country. Like, I'll be an enemy of the state.
So let's talk about that then, because Michelle Obama is who people keep saying, "Oh, Michelle Obama is going to be the nominee." If I'm Michelle Obama, I don't want to leave Martha's Vineyard to go live in the White House again. We're already, my husband and I are already calling the shots anyway.
Right, you want the puppet to deal with the BS, and you just hang out on Martha's Vineyard, where there are no illegal immigrants, by the way, because if one shows up there, they kick them out.
Right. Yeah. But they do it with smiles on their faces.
Yes. Oh, we love them very much, and I gave one of them a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It was really great. Yeah.
Don't worry, I had them do some roofing work on my house before they left to make them feel at home. It was very, very kind of me. Okay. But so to me, the guy is Gavin Newsom. Is that who your thought is?
Again, I would just say that I don't know what the mechanism is to make that happen, short of they cut some, Biden steps down and then they have to cut some crazy deal with Kamala.
Yeah.
So putting aside what the mechanism might be, because I don't know what it is.
I don't know how.
But by the way, I would never put anything past these people. If they have to burn down every rule in the Democrat Party playbook, and if that convention has to turn into a WWE wrestling match to get what they want, they will do it. Right. So putting aside the rule part for a second, the thing with Gavin is I think he's in a much worse position than he was a year ago. Like, it really has bubbled up how evil he is and what's happened to California and the crime and the drugs and the fleeing. Over 1 million people have left California in 3 years. So he is going to have trouble selling. But I would just say the media has a way of, if they suddenly are like, you know what, it's Kamala and Gavin as VP. They're here to stop Orange Hitler. It's the dream team. Thank you, Joe, for doing your part. Like, we'll watch it happen overnight.
Well, one more part of this, the Democrats did it to themselves and it couldn't happen to a more deserving party, is just watching all of this DEI obsession just come to fruition. It's like, well, you just said that Kamala was like, it was so important because she's the first woman. Right. She's the first Black woman. She's the first, what else was it? It was like Indonesian, like whatever she.
Kwanzaa. She's a Kwanzaa woman.
Everything that came up in her 23andMe report, they definitely used as the first, Samoan or whatever. And so
it's to kick her out to bring in the straight white guy. Pete's going to be like, what about me?
Exactly. Yeah. So how do you do that?
Well, but that's what I'm saying. There is nothing they won't do. They would literally stamp on her ashes if they had to, because because DEI is a lie. All of the woke ideology is a lie. They want power. Yeah. So it will be hilarious to watch them kick out the first Black female, and what is a woman? I don't even know. So right. But they'll do it. They will do it, and then they will do it with a smile on their face.
100%.
And tell us that we're the racists while they're doing it.
Oh yeah. So I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, I need your expertise. There's a rumor floating around. This guy went on Alex Jones and said that Barack Obama wants Joe Biden out because the Bidens know secrets about Barack Obama being homosexual.
I don't have any inside knowledge on that. If that was, if that's what. Well, I mean,
is Barack Obama gay?
I have no idea, other than Tucker Carlson did interview a guy who basically claimed he smoked crack and had sex with Obama. But does that make you gay, or just having a good time? I mean,
I actually don't have any knowledge of that one.
I don't have any inside knowledge on that front.
I didn't know what your gaydar was saying.
I don't really have good gaydar.
Really?
I'm not even gay till 10 o'clock.
You're very manly.
What time is it right now?
It's not 10 o'clock yet.
No, we can pick this up at.
You are very manly and masculine.
Thank you.
You have that rugged look about you.
You can still be that and gay. But that's a different show. We could get into that.
All right, let's go ahead. Dave's like, please take a break.
You must know.
Please take a break. Please take a break.
What time is it?
It's time to go. You know what, Sarah? It turns out I got to go early. All right.